I am Jim Collison, and this is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on August 22nd, 2023. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals and teams around the world. Sylvia Lee and Maggie Nia are my guests today. Sylvia is a highly respected and sought-after executive coach, business and talent strategy advisor, organizational development expert, and seasoned facilitator. Sylvia brings to her clients over 20 years of sustained impact from her regional and global leadership and talent management roles in global corporations. She became a Gallup certified strengths coach earlier this year. And Sylvia, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Great to have you. Maggie has had a rich experience in HR for over 24 years in multinational companies, 10 years experience in Global HR Center of Expertise, and 10 years of coaching experience at Accenture. And she's been a Gallup certified strengths coach since October of 2021. And Maggie, welcome to the program.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
It is great to have you. It's great to have both of you. Thanks for coming. Sylvia, let's start with you. Let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how you came to Clifton Strengths, as well as a little bit about your coaching experience.
Right. I was qualified for Gallup Strength earlier on this year. So I'm sort of a newbie in qualification. However, I got in touch with the tool many years back. As I was using the tool for my personal development. I fell in love with it at first sight. I think that's a really encouraging and taking individual development from a different spin at that time, where people were more focusing on the weaknesses per se. What can I do to fill that gap, rather than putting a little bit more emphasis on what I'm good at and how do I make the best of it. So that was really, really refreshing. And that was probably like 10 years back. I did a second one more recently, and I said, no, I really have to get to the back end of it and understand how it works, because it's so good. And I wish more of my friends, my colleagues would be able to appreciate a little bit more of that. On the coaching side, I got in touch with coaching probably over 20 years ago when I was in my learning and development role. So at that time, my company taking the front foot in people and leadership development. And there was a mandate that all people managers need to be taking a coaching approach. And therefore, we had a company-wide campaign around getting understanding and practicing coaching. And the story that's on from that point on, and I got myself qualified and practiced a little bit more in my in-house and external role as well. 3 years back, I decided to, wake up one day and say, maybe I should have my own business. So now I'm running my own consulting company and practicing a little bit more on executive coaching as my full-time role.
Sylvia, you just went through the process, and we recently changed it. The questions stayed the same, but there's still 100 questions. How did you feel about taking that exam? And it went okay, obviously, but how'd you get through that?
It's still the same core, I believe. It is still the same sort of principles and values of how people would appreciate what they're really good at. Maybe one or two questions, so the spin might be a little bit different, but the concept is still there. So I really didn't actually think much about now and then, but it continues to enhance the sort of my understanding and appreciation. Of the tool.
Great. Thank you. It's great to meet you. Maggie, let's do that with you as well. A little bit about you and your own strengths journey, and then a little bit about your coaching.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I think the first time I took the strengths assessment was about 2007. That is only top 5 because I was in a hypo program, high potential program. Then I got my top 5, but unfortunately I didn't really go deep. So then in 2013, it was a great opportunity to know something about coaching. I was in a coaching workshop by Global Team. And at that time, I didn't realize how strengths will help me to do a better job in coaching. And then I think back into 2015, the strengths assessment was like launched in the entire company, and I was the first pilot session batch. Actually, I got an opportunity to take the assessment again. I got my full report, and the most important thing, I think that is a turning point. Actually, I was invited in a strengths coaching session. I was so interested in that. I don't know what is that, but I was so, I mean, it's amazing actually. It's really helped me to understand why strengths works and how it helps me to do my better job and to be a better person actually. So after that, I really go deep into strengths, and I was a coach already at that moment. So I embedded strengths to my coaching session with executives and with people. But of course, I'm not certified at that moment. But it's so fun. I mean, people love strengths, and when they talk about strengths, they're getting excited and they're so confident. They're so happy about that. So I feel like, oh my God, it's so interesting. So I even spent more time on strengths. And then I think a couple of years later, I got a full-time job working on strengths in the global team. You know, how amazing it was, right? I was like, oh my God, it's so good. So I spent a lot of time on strengths and talking strengths with people. And then finally in 2022, I got an opportunity to be certified. You know, you never know how excited I was, you know. Oh my God. I said, I appreciate a lot for my leader's decision, because I looked forward to this opportunity for a long time. So after that, I did hundreds of strengths coaching sessions for leaders, for colleagues, for teams. And it's especially for those people who are going through new changes, like new roles, leading a new team, whatever. So I think that is really helpful. And meanwhile, I also found out the team strengths session helps leaders a lot. So you see, I really understand how the strengths helps us, helps our leaders to do a better job and to be a better person. And that's about strengths. Of course, we can talk about strengths all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Maggie, those were exciting times for Gallup as we were working with Accenture in those days. We still are. And some exciting times for us as well. So good to hear it was exciting for you. Let's stay on that topic. And Maggie, let's stay with you as we think about the role strengths play in nurturing leadership. You just mentioned that. Can you talk a little bit about the value of that in leadership?
Yeah, it's a great help for sure. Because for strengths, when we talk about strengths, definitely it helps people to know themselves better. That is for sure, especially when they are facing challenges. And in the past, like 3 or 4 years, we were in a COVID, right? So it's uncertain and it's really hard time for people. So it's really helped them to build up the resilience, actually. And it's so important for leaders to be resilient and also lead a team, the entire team to be resilient. So talk about the strengths, not only helping the person himself, but also the entire team to know better and to even know how to collaborate together, how to partner together with the others. So the leaders become more inclusive, actually. And definitely they encourage better collaboration in a team and out of the team. So it's easier for them to build up trusted relationship with the team, especially in a hard time. Definitely they are unlocking the potential of people, right? So by the end of the day, it helped them to be more engaged, and also that to be a greater leader.
I love that. What I hear in you is oftentimes giving the leader the language to be able to coach, to be able to work with, to be able to empower those they're working with, right? It gives them that language to do that. Sylvia, you've heard what Maggie said. What would you add to that?
What Maggie said make a lot of sense. And let me say this. As Maggie was talking about strengths, her whole face lit up. Yeah. She was so passionate. I cannot help but going with her, right? So I was knocking along. It's like, yeah. So this is exactly what a leader needs, is to bring your team with you by the passion you're displaying, you're demonstrating to your team. And the whole concept of strength is very positive. It's based on positivity. It's based on what you are good at and make the best of it. Now, we're not ignoring things that you're not good at, but the question is, have you maximized? Have you made the best of what you're already inborn with, already in your toolbox? And I believe strengths actually should apply to everybody, but for somebody in a leadership role where problems are more complex, the horizon, the universe is more challenging at times, then the role model needs to be even more prominent, if you like. So if we were translating resilience, for example, positivity, hope, trust, etc., then for a leader to display that kind of passion is even more important. When you can set that example, people would say, hey, look, the guy is still smiling and keeping calm and talking positive rather than negative in times of uncertainty, for example. That instills a lot of hope in people, and that's what the leader needs to do.
I love that. That's a great way to look at it, I think. And Sylvia, let me ask you this question on trust. And you both mentioned the word resilience. And I think sometimes people can only come back or be resilient when they trust the process. So, Sylvia, in the work that you've done and thinking about Clifton Strengths and this idea of trust, and maybe even with an example, if you've got one off the top of your head, but think about how does Clifton Strengths bring in this element for the leader and for their teams of trust in the organization too?
Sure. Let me give you an example of an executive that I have worked with over probably 4 years now. I don't like use the word typical, but he is a typical sort of what people think a leadership project: futuristic, achieve, strategic, everything that a leadership program would have you to take part in. You have to be good at all these things. He is not as strong in his relational skills. So the leader is well aware of that. And he's totally buying. Actually, he is one of the leaders that I do not need to convince him about strength as a tool. It's like, yep, I know about this. I want to use this. And he came up with this. And he's like, okay, that's me. Makes a lot of sense. So you know what I'm not good at. So how can I talk to my people and instill trust in them? At that point, he has got a team of very smart people, but only one thing lacking, and you know what? The trust amongst the team. And he said, how can I instill that? And I said, well, do you think that would happen? Do you trust the system, though? First of all, you have to display what you believe is going to happen. And with your futuristic and all these strengths, how can you make that happen? So turning into, at the first set, he might say, I'm not good at certain things, into how can we make that happen still? Mm-hmm. And with his achieve, input, etc., he was able to find a path in at least convincing himself. So he has to feel and display trust from himself first. I trust I can do that. I trust the system. And then he would at least just share his experience, his feelings with people. Before going out and do anything new, just tell people how you feel, how you get through that hurdle, if you like. And then people would see the authenticity and a bit of vulnerability, because he's such a prominent leader figure in many, many sense in the concept that we have in our mind. And therefore, for his team to see that, well, he's really a smart guy. I did a 360 interview with everybody, said he's very smart, but talking to him is very difficult and all these things. But then to see that human side of him, just by himself trusting the system, that's important. Yeah,
to see the human side of that. And you mentioned to to say, you know what, there are some things I'm not good at. I think over the years we've had some pressure on managers that they had to be good at everything, and they couldn't show any weaknesses, right? They couldn't show any vulnerabilities in that. And Clifton's strengths, I think, gives us this safe language, right, to talk about these. You know what, I do have these gifts, but from a team perspective, I'm going to need some things from you as well, right? And that can be, Sylvia, can that be both across a manager to the reporting team as well as manager to manager? I think oftentimes we miss this element of managing teams, right? To say, hey, I may not be good at this, but can you fill in? I don't know. Any thoughts, Sylvia? Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. There's nothing stopping people practicing, utilizing this particular tool or skill set. And probably it's an approach as well. At the end of the day, putting all technicalities aside, it's about building relation. I'm very high on relation. So it's about connecting with people. Now, even if you're not a connector or it's actually your lesser strength, you still need to do that. Yeah. And there is we all know how to do that in our own way. Then it's a matter of understanding and looking at things in different perspective, bringing more people into as your resource group. The ability to do that is important too. Yeah. There are certain skills that actually can be learned. So with input as a learner, you can learn some of the things. So it really depends on, again, the beauty of strength is there are certain things that you can use to bridge that gap. Yeah. So in terms of peer, in my Gallup training earlier on this year, one of the participants actually said, oh my goodness, I didn't actually realize that I can use this. She came in probably thinking about she's going to use it for her team as a leader herself. But one example that's popped into her mind, and she shared that I probably can use this with my peer manager, which she's trying to, or her partner as a colleague. So that's really wonderful.
I think it's an underutilized team set that we often think about the manager to their teams, but there's managing teams as well that can use this as well. Maggie, I want to give you a chance on this same question. In your experience, as we think about building trust in teams, what have you used to get that done?
Yeah, I think the team strength session is the most useful thing when we talk about building the trust, because as a leader, building the trust is definitely the beginning of the managing a team. Because if you don't have the trust, then what are you going to do, right? And talking about strengths and discussing the strengths with people, it's a great start, actually. And whenever I talk to manager about their own strengths, we have a round-one coaching session, they feel like, oh my God, they're so excited. And how should I use this in my team? Then the next question will be, okay, would you please help me to do a coaching session in my team? I say, yes, of course, let's do it. So we have the coaching session on team strengths, and it's amazing actually. And you're going to see everybody is talking, and they open up, and they feel like, oh, I know the other person better. And some colleagues are very, very close, but some of them not. And they're even like, in the coffee, we're not going to see each other, and they're just sitting at home and talking virtually, right? So it's a great opportunity to know each other more. And oh yeah, you got this strength, and this is definitely a very good opportunity to know each other more and understand. Oh, I got you. I mean, you are this kind of person because you've got a strength like this. You got learning like myself. I got learning as a top one. I love learning so much, and then as long as there's something new for me, I'm so excited. And of course, I do admire people got adaptability, because adaptability is my bottom, the 34th, right? Then I realized, oh, if I work together with this kind of person, how should I do that? How should I work together and achieve more with this kind of person? So it's more about partner together with others. It's like, I know you better, and you know me better. Then how we work together to achieve the target, achieve the goal better, right? So it's a great way to discuss how we work together within the team, definitely. The whole process itself is the way to build up the trust, and then they open up. That's the reason, right? So I think that's a great tool for managers talking about strengths in a team. I mean, even you talk about the strengths every day. It's we're not taking too much time, maybe 5 minutes, right? Maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes in a briefing. So it's so helpful, and then people love it because they realize, oh, it's me, it's my strengths, right? So it's a great tool, actually.
Yeah, it gives us that quick language, right? That framework where we can quickly have these conversations and then call out these things. You know, you said you had low adaptability. I have it high. So in this context of the two of us working together, it's okay. We're gonna change some things, but I'm gonna take care of you as we move along, right? That builds that element of trust. That trust leads to stability, or it can lead to stability. Can Maggie, as you think about that outcome, in you know, we always say right now we're in uncertain times. The secret is all times are uncertain. So, right, no matter what we do, we're always questioning, like, I wonder what's coming next. So, regardless of what we've been through and what's coming, as we think about adding stability, how have you seen the stability make changes in teams? How do they act differently when they feel the stability? Maggie?
Yeah. Stability, definitely, I think in other words, like everybody engaged, right? It's more about engagement. And just imagine how, in what situation are you going to engage in a team? Yeah. Or we can say engage in your work. So definitely it's about people, right? It's about people. And of course, if some in the position, in a role, I'm able to do what I'm good at, I'm able to leverage my strengths, I feel like, oh, that is something I'm good at, I can do it better, and then I can even do my best. So that is something I feel like so happy about that. I'm not going to think about change my role or change my work. I will stay here for a long time, definitely. And I was so lucky because in my previous team and in Accenture, I mean, it's because the culture is there, the strengths culture is there, then everybody is talking about strengths. My leaders, they're always thinking about how to leverage my strengths to do the job. So you see, I never think about to change my work I mean, I feel like I'm so stable. I was so stable. Of course, by the end of the day, it's a lot of trust behind. Yeah. So, and also the message was really about care. The manager care about you. The leaders care about you as a whole person. Not only care about you, the performance at work. It's about a care about you as a whole person, right? And she knows my strengths, and she always think about my strengths. She always think about how to leverage my strengths to help me achieve better and to be a better person and develop myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something about make me feel like so good. I appreciate that. I was so grateful, right?
At the end of the day, we really just want to be productive, right? I mean, that really kind of what it boils down to, right? Stability provides that productivity. Sylvia, as we think about in some of the work you've done, how have you seen that play out? Can you sense when a team or a leader is getting their team more stable using their strengths? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, think about the last few years, right? We've got economic instability. We've got, the whole world going crazy about this new virus and doesn't know what to do. And everybody's scrambling about coming up with the best solution in managing the situation. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of instability. But then on the other hand, we know, oh, change is, going to happen anyway. So change is the constant. That's a saying, right? So how do you reconcile that? And then to me, I think the realization is change is going to happen. Stability doesn't mean no change. Actually, sometimes we instigate change for good reasons. But stability is when things change, when things are uncertain, the core values of certain things don't get flustered. So you still keep your cool. You still keep your centeredness despite the universe is turning around. You know what is going to change. You're going to adopt to change and adapt to. And that's why people with us high adaptability will probably take a better, front foot in those situations. So somehow in our strength, we are prepared to manage change. But the good thing, again, it comes back to the beauty of strength. Your core values, your core strength doesn't change. Even the world is changing. And that's where you have to anchor on and hang on to and makes even the better of what you already can do better in this kind of situation. And probably bring it out to people as well. So as a leader, you really need to even reinforce, re-anchor on your strength and help people see their strength. And now the situation is, how do we get through this particular stormy weather?
Yeah.
And again, I like what you said, Jim, is the common language, is that framework that is going to apply in good times as well as uncertain times.
Yeah. Sylvia, you alluded to this a ways back, but I kind of want to ask it again. As we think about leaders, executives, middle managers, people leading other people, how can this new awareness, and when we think about business outcomes, because at the end of the day, like I said, we all want to be productive. When we're all productive together, that creates amazing business outcomes. Can you think of any specific examples or highlight any areas where you've seen that translate? Because everybody says, yeah, this is great, but does it translate to the bottom line, right? Do you have any areas on that you can speak to around business outcomes?
Yeah. Let me just still come back to that particular example of an executive. He was an investment banker. Well, he's still an investment banker, very senior, very successful, but he also has a side business who is very, very art related. So he has a passion on that. Now, so he's got very high awareness on his strength. He understands not only is understanding his own strength important, but he needs to translate that into the work that he does in his bank and the bank, and as well as in his team, in his personal business. In that sense, I think it's more about trying to help his team understand, his direct reports and their direct reports, understand what the core objectives are for the business and how they actually play out their strength in achieving that. So we had a team session and try to understand each other's strength and how can we actually make that happen. If I'm running a business as an individual, here are things that I might be able to do. Now translate that back into a team situation. How are we going to make that happen? So in that sense, the business is doing well despite what has been going on in the last 3 years in the world. And I think, well, that actually plays a very important role in that. Now, of course, there are other things that they are doing right from a business perspective, but actually playing out your strength, bringing it back to the business is really important, especially when you think about things like the art during COVID is even more difficult to survive. But the business is doing really well. So
great. No, it's good. That's always good to hear. Maggie, from your side, as we think about those, as we think about that area of business outcomes, can you speak to that? What have you seen?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to help leader understand why strengths can help to achieve business outcome. Normally, I encourage him and invite him to a conversation with me. And then really like what Sylvia mentioned and shared, we really were looking at the business outcome, how this person, how the leader to leverage their top strengths to achieve better business outcome. As long as he was able to really engage in the conversation, and of course, by the end of the day, he will find some solutions to achieving the goals, right? So then, as long as the leader realize, it's helpful and it is easy to help him to spread out. To encourage his team members to know strengths and to have a team session, like what Siva mentioned. And, when we talk about business outcome, it's not about only leaders' responsibility, right? It's everybody's. So that's very important to have the leaders to know how to leverage their strengths, but also the team. So so that's I think that's a really great way to see how the strengths help them. And of course, sorry.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. Of course, it's not easy to really like convince people. I mean, especially leaders, they are so busy, right? They're super, super busy. They got a lot of, it's so stressful, and they don't have too many like effort, energies, and time to own that. So it's very important to really building a strength culture in the company, actually. So I think Accenture did a great job, actually.
Yeah, they did. They did do a great job. And actually that time, Sylvia, I'll get to you here in just a second. That time that saved, I mean, oftentimes the system saves time, right? We don't have to work as hard at getting to know each other, right? The system is in place. And that gives us that time back, right? It gives us that time back to do some of these things. Sylvia, what else did you want to add?
Sorry, I just want to add that by business outcome, we're not only talking about bottom line numbers. For my business, it's more about retention and making the best of retaining the best people that you have, right? Despite the economy, the whole world turning upside down, retention is still a big issue in corporations, right? People have different thoughts, so people might actually voluntarily resign, and they decided to do other things. And how do we hang on to the best people? And instilling the stability, the trust, etc., and helping people. People want to stay because they cannot find a better place to go. And if you can create an environment that they can continue to flourish and grow, despite what is going on in the external landscape, then your best people will stay on and bring the best into this organization.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned continue to grow. Let's talk about growth here for a second. What kind of tools, and Maggie, let me start with you on this. What kind of tools are you finding that you can use for success, both for those that you're coaching, those executives or leaders or individuals that you're coaching, or for yourself? Because we always have to be investing in ourselves as well. So, Maggie, let me throw that question to you first. What are you using?
Thank you, G. Talking about growth, and I think everybody is getting excited, right? When we talk about, they may not have like one tool for all. It's pretty flexible, actually. If I rather to say it's kind of like mindset, how you keep yourself developed and helping people to develop. I think there's one thing, keep learning definitely is one thing. And the second will be keep reflecting on your strengths, on your top strengths. And of course, for myself, actually, I got learner as a top one. And, learner, the other side of the learner is like you learn too much, right? You don't have a focus.
Not possible for a learner, right? Not possible.
Yeah. And I keep reflecting on that. And then I realize input, when learner and input, put them together, how crazy I am. And I think my third one is achiever. So I always leverage achiever to manage myself on learning. So I set goals on learning, and I just focus on one thing for 1 or 2 years, and then I'll go deeper. So then I'm able to leverage learner, input, and achiever together. So then it's a great partner, actually. And I always I keep learning on coaching, psychology, and whatever. So it's so focused, and it helped me to really to be the expert in this area. So that is something I just give you an example how I developed myself, actually. And I really leverage my strengths, and I keep reflecting every day, actually. So achiever, even I reflect on my in life. I mean, as achiever, I enjoy the moment of a completion, right? So when I buy something, I always buy a lot. Then I always thinking about how should I finish that. For example, if I buy 2 apples, I want to finish that. Then I can't take 2 apples. So next time I realize, oh my God, this is my achiever. I need to finish 2 apples, but I can't. So then I always buy 1 apple because I can finish that. I enjoy the moment when I finish that. So that is very interesting. Keep reflecting on how your strengths help you and how your strengths like stop you. That is a great tip for myself to develop myself. And of course, for others, coaching is one way. I mean, I believe it's the best way to empower people. And if you're really focused on strengths, this is another great tool to help you make your coaching more engaged and more positive. So it's always start with strengths, then your clients will love that.
That's great. Maggie, when you said apples, you really meant books or courses. That's what you meant, right? That's what you meant to say, because you can't get enough of the books or courses. Sylvia, same question to you. Let me throw that over. How are you keeping yourself sharp? What kind of things are you increasing your productivity?
I'm looking at my strength. I'm very much on relation. Right? My strengths are strategic, and then follow on. It's empathy, relator, responsibility, communication. Apart from the first one, they're all connecting with people. So I get my energy from people. Years on back, I realized that, and I'm not a big input, but I collect people. I collect a lot of people, friends that I can connect with a diverse group of friends. And I enjoy talking to them and gaining their perspective. And I'm very happy to share. And as a connector, it's my top 10, I connect them together too. So when I see them interact and sparkle through, I gain a lot of joy and energy. And that is my fuel. So whether it's actually for my personal development or not, I feel that, when I have that fire in me, I'm on fire. So I want to learn from you. I want to talk to you about this and that. That's how I kind of grow, by learning from other people, taking perspectives in. If you were talking about a particular tool to keep me sharp, just one, that you just mentioned, maybe there are different psychometrics and personality tests and all these things and whatnot, and they all have their merits in there. So I'll leave it to the audience to explore that. If I take a different spin, I use and read pyramid principle a lot. So many people knows about this, by Barbara Minto from McKinsey, and that I'm still learning about it. But that model is more about communication, about communicating precisely and knowing what to say and saying it in the right way, precise and concise. As a communicator, communication is my top 5. Sometimes I might overgo and talk too much. That particular model helps
not
me
possible. It's not possible. I have communication for it.
Giving me a timer because, but that helped me really distill my thoughts, keep me on my toes, and be, having that discipline. So talking about when you have a strength and it goes overflow, becomes something that's pulling you back. Go in there and do something that is, giving you that principle. For me, in this particular case, it's giving that principle for me to be a little bit sharper in my communication. So I like to just share that particular as a tool. Otherwise, it's more about, collecting perspectives from others.
No, I love that. I love how both of you worked through your top 5 as you thought about that, and you brought others in as well. So influential. We didn't start with that. Well, I should have probably at the very beginning of the program asked each one of you what your top 5 were. But I'm wondering, for people who were listening to this, as they were working their way through it, could they hear from some of the answers you were saying could they hear those themes come out? You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, I have Woo and Communication 2 and 4. At the beginning of the pandemic, I said I just have to use my talents to communicate across the globe with this technology that we had. Before the pandemic. Nobody would get on Zoom. Now everybody's on whatever Zoom, whatever tools that we're using. And it was a great way to communicate with people, right? It allowed me to make our coaching our coaching community better and work with people. You guys are a benefit of that, which is super cool to see that. We have time for one last question. Sylvia, I'm going to kind of give it to you as you think about the one reason or the reasons, or you want to encourage people who maybe are hearing this for the first time, or they've been thinking about using Clifton Strengths as a tool. What kind of encouragement would you give to them that would maybe get them moving with this for the first time, or engage a coach for the first time? What kind of encouragement would you give them? And then Maggie, I'll ask you that same question.
Again, it's that breath of fresh air. It's taking something you already have and build it on, rather than starting from scratch. And that's already, quite, it's actually very inspiring.
Yeah.
Right. To understand my strength, how that can actually go about achieving a goal that at times might seem really far out, difficult, because I think I'm not good at certain things. But the beauty of strength is, yes, you can still go there, but taking a different route, and that's okay. And in the process, take a team with you, try to understand other strengths as well, and spot it out in the people that you work with. And that actually, you can actually weave it into your daily life. You don't have to stop what you're doing. You continue with what you're doing, but taking a different perspective and continuing on. So there is no stop, going back, retaking. That actually, coming back to your point, be productive, and you can, go from build on what you already have as a platform.
Yeah, I love that. We say all the time, strength's very powerful in the context of an individual, but infinitely power in the context of teams. And I love what you said about it. We also use this word accelerant, makes things go faster, right? And so I love, Sylvia, I love what you had to say about that. Maggie, what would you say? What final words would you have before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I do want to share some tips for the new coaches. I just recall back to like a couple of years ago when I first time to do the strength coaching. I feel like I was so nervous. I prepare a lot. I was like, oh my God, there's so many noises in my mind. So it's hard. I know that. But I would like to share the tips if you started to do your coaching, so the strength coaching with your leaders, especially with your leaders or executives. So the first one is get prepared, both mentally and physically. Well, what I mean is sometimes content is very important, but it's not the most important. You may need to get prepared mentally, and you can do like meditation before the session. And I think the second one is even more important, which is let go. So don't think about the identity, the career level, the senior people or whoever, right? They're good at or this area or that area. So never think about it. Just let go. And actually, in China, we have a culture like empathy, right? Emptiness. So release all your thoughts from your mind and keep yourself like centered and really focused. So that is very important. It's hard actually, let go then, and especially for new coaches, right? And the third one is really trusting your intuition, and of course trust your client. You strongly believe they're okay, they're resourceful, they're definitely willing to explore the strengths together with you. So I think if you do that, then it help you to feel very free and enjoy the session with your leaders. So then I hope it's helpful to you. Thank you.
That's great, Sylvia. There were some practical tips that Maggie just gave. Would you add anything to those as she was walking through that? Maybe one last tip from you.
For new coaches, I think it's good to consolidate and do a stock take about in addition to strength, what other skill set have you collected in your toolbox? You might have exposed to other kind of tools. You might be already starting or been practicing coaching. You might be more familiar with other methodology. Again, coming back to strength is taking a stock take of what you already have and build onto from that platform on. And so you're acquiring a new piece of tool into your new toolbox. But here is how do you actually weave them together and make it your own? And you can use it in different situations. So no one tool is going to resolve everything, but this is going to be so powerful, and it can bring other tools and things, your other strengths into play.
I think those are good words to wrap this on. Maggie, Sylvia, thank you for being a part of the program today. Great to meet you, great to get to know you, and great to hear your stories. We appreciate that. We'll let individuals who are watching it, if you've made it all the way to this point and you want to get some further, maybe you've got some questions, we've got some answers. There'll be a way to contact us, Gallup in China, if you'd like to do that. As a part of this video, there'll be some ways to contact us. We want to thank you for watching us. We want to thank you for joining us today. Thanks for coming out, and you guys hang tight for me 1 second. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.